The light drapes fluttered gently as I slipped through the shadows, my steps silent on the polished marble floor. The Moffs' household was a labyrinth of opulence, each corridor echoing with the strict protocols of imperial power. I approached the threshold of the Moff study, where a stern-faced guard stood watch. He nodded to me, his eyes never straying from mine. Lady Alistair is in. Mighty sterile about her neste. I acknowledged him with a nod and entered the room. Inside, Lady Alistair sat behind her desk, reviewing documents with a critical eye. Her presence was commanding, even in this small chamber. She glanced up at my entrance, her expression unreadable. "Report," she commanded tersely. I cleared my throat, trying to maintain the calm I had practiced for months. "The gala preparations are on schedule, my lady. All staff are accounted for and ready." Lady Alistair's eyes narrowed as she examined a stack of papers. "And the security detail?" She leaned forward, her voice low but commanding. I hesitated, knowing full well that any slip could be disastrous. I reported that the guards had been reinforced as ordered. However, there has been an increase in local unrest. A group is rumoured to be planning a protest near the city gates. Lady Alistair's expression hardened. "Inform me immediately if they gather." She returned her attention to her work. I bowed slightly and left the room, my heart pounding in my chest. The Moff's household was like a tightrope walk. Every misstep could mean disaster. I hastened back through the halls, my mind racing with the new threat. The servants' quarters were just down this corridor. Their lives, as fragile as mine, depended on their silence and obedience. I quickened my pace, determined to ensure they remained safe. As I rounded the corner, a sudden noise from one of the side rooms made me freeze. The door was slightly ajar. I could hear muffled voices. Curiosity, or perhaps duty, compelled me to investigate. I pushed open the door and found 3 guards, whispering urgently among themselves. Their faces paled as they saw me. "Lady Alistair has instructed us to inform her of any disturbances." One of them stammered, his voice barely audible. I demanded. My voice low but firm. I demanded. My voice low but firm. The guard hesitated, then whispered, "There's a group planning to disrupt the gala. They've been gathering intelligence on the guests." My mind raced. This was the information. Lady Alistair needed to head off any potential threats, but if word got out that I had overheard this, I swallowed hard. How long could I keep this secret? The answer hung in the air, unspoken and dangerous. The grim realities of serving under a Moff's household. The walls are lined with portraits of imperial grandees, each stare more piercing than the last. I slipped through the shadows of the Moff's private dining hall, avoiding the polished marble floor that gleams like a mirror. Every step must be calculated to avoid the trapdoors, designed for my kind. Who knows when they might spring? The dining table is set with crystal and silver, but I never touch it. The Moff's meals are prepared by his personal chef, a privilege not extended to me or any of the other staff. Why risk contamination? Aunt Sarah, I know better than to eat in this place. A sharp whisper from behind makes my heart skip. Oh! The Moff's bodyguard, Zorva, stands guard outside the door. His eyes never leave mine. "Why are you here?" he hisses, his voice low and menacing. I quickly move toward the kitchen entrance, slipping past him without a word. Zorvath is known for his loyalty to the Moff, but his vigilance is unyielding. The kitchens are a labyrinth of clinking pots and sizzling pans. I move like a ghost, avoiding the other servants who dart about with their tasks. The rule here is clear: silence and servitude. A tray of untouched dishes waits by the door, leading to the Moff's private chambers. I place it there carefully, making sure not to draw attention. The Moff's meals are crucial. His health is a matter of state security. As I turn to leave, Zorvath appears at my side again. "You're late," he says, his tone sharp enough to cut through the silence. I nod, knowing full well the consequences of being late or discovered in the Moff's quarters. The rule here bites hard. One misstep and it's back to the mines. The corridor ahead is empty, but I can feel Zorvath's eyes watching me from behind. The Moff's household is a web of danger, where every breath could be my last. How much longer can I keep this up? Zorvath's shadow loomed like an executioner's blade as I tiptoed through the opulent dining hall. I noticed the polished marble floor, gleaming under the chandelier, reflecting the opulence of Lady Alistair's and the Moff's grandeur. I placed a tray carefully on the side table, trying to avoid Zorvath's gaze. The rule was clear: any noise, and it would be back to the mines for me. I had seen the look in his eyes before, calculating and ruthless. A soft whisper echoed from behind a tapestry, drawing my attention. A young guard's voice trembled with urgency. "Lady Alistair knows about the unrest. We need to act fast." I rose, the weight of Zorvath's presence pressing down on me. "How do we not return? Let us stand to make go." If he heard that whisper clear, a deep voice growled from the shadows, snapping me back into action. I hurriedly finished setting the table and retreated, each step echoing in my mind as I fled the hall. The silence was oppressive now, heavier than before. Had Zorvath heard? The reality of serving under a Moff's household is not just servitude, it's a constant dance of survival. What if Lady Alistair's warning isn't enough to prevent disaster? Disaster. The golden walls glistened under the chandeliers as I placed the last dish. Zorvath's eyes never left my face, his presence a constant reminder of the danger lurking in every whisper. "Did you hear them?" A low voice from the shadows made me jump. Lady Alistair leaned against the ornate wall, her expression unreadable. "No," I whispered back, trying to keep my voice steady. She stepped closer, her gaze piercing. "They speak of unrest at the gala tonight. Moff needs to know. Should I inform him?" I asked softly, glancing towards Zorvath, who was now pacing just outside the door. Lady Alistair's lips curled in a slight smile. "Wow, Maishun, and then don't check out. He already knows. There's a reason he sent you here." Her tone was cold, leaving no room for doubt. I nodded, understanding dawning. The Moff had his own secrets to keep hidden. Zorvath reappeared, his scrutiny unwavering. I quickly hid the tray behind my back and stepped closer to Lady Alistair, lowering my voice conspiratorially. "What do you think we should do?" She met my eyes for a moment before pulling away, her resolve hardening. "We must ensure everything runs smoothly tonight. Moff's plans are not meant to be altered." I nodded, feeling the weight of my task, but as I turned to leave, Zorvath's hand shot out and grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "Stay alert," he whispered harshly before releasing me and disappearing back into the shadows. Lady Alistair watched him go, her expression unreadable once more. "We can't afford any mistakes." I hurried away, the sound of my footsteps echoing faintly in the grand hall. What if Lady Alistair's warning was true? What if? And what secrets did Zorvath keep from us all? My soul. Would tonight's gala be a mask for something far darker? I moved with deliberate care, each step muffled by the plush carpet. The tray balanced precariously in my hands as I neared Zorvath's post at the far end of the hall. His eyes scanned the room, a predatory glint that made me shiver. "Stay quiet," he hissed under his breath. I placed the tray on a side table with a soft thud, praying it was inaudible. As I turned to leave, Zorvath's hand shot out like a snake. "Not so fast, Corelia," he growled, blocking my path. His grip was firm but not painful, just enough to remind me of the mines. "Zorvath, you know." "I know what?" He leaned in closer, his breath warm against my ear. "Yeah, oh." I know the rules, and I know your place. His fingers tightened, ever so slightly, sending a jolt of fear through me. Silence, he whispered, then released me with a swift nod. The gala was about to begin. Corelia's heart raced as she surveyed the hall, her eyes darting between the guests and Zorva. Lady Alistair moved gracefully among them, but her sharp gaze made Corelia's skin crawl. The whisper of unrest grew louder, and Corelia feared it might soon be more than just words. Lady Alistair glanced over her shoulder, catching Corelia's eye. Something passed between them, a silent acknowledgement that Corelia hadn't missed. But what did Lady Alistair know? And how long could Corelia keep this secret? Corelia hurried toward the approaching guest at the bar, her mind racing with unseen dangers lurking in the shadows. I slipped between the guests, my breath shallow and deliberate. The golden masks of the nobles concealed more than just their faces. They hid truths Zorvath would never let slip into the open. The rule of silence is paramount. Lady Alistair's sharp gaze caught mine for a moment too long, as I placed a glass of wine on a side table. Her eyes flicked back to Zorva, who stood rigidly by her side. Corelia knew she couldn't afford a misstep. Any glance could be the last. Zorvath's voice rumbled close. Anything amiss, Corelia? His tone was low, but unmistakable, and hesitation would cost her dearly. I nodded subtly, my hand trembling slightly as it steadied the tray. The rule of silence is paramount. Lady Alistair leaned in to whisper, Corelia, keep an eye on him. Something isn't right. Her words cut through the tension like a blade. Mind it an stone, her action up a blade. Corelia felt the weight of her responsibility grow. The gala's success rested on her shoulders now. The whispers among the guards grew louder, their murmurs weaving a web of unease around us. Lady Alistair's aide, Zorvath, and even the guests everyone seemed to know something was brewing. Corelia's heart pounded as she realized the unrest could unravel everything. A sudden commotion erupted at the entrance. A group of guards rushed in with urgent expressions. Lady Alistair's face paled, her grip tightening on Zorvath's arm. Corelia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The gala threatened by unseen dangers. With a silent prayer, she continued to serve, but now she knew. The danger was here, and it could destroy all their efforts. The rule of silence is paramount until it bites right now. Corelia slipped through the crowd, her eyes darting for any sign of trouble, as Lady Alistair's voice echoed in her mind. The masked ball was a web of pretense and power, and every whisper could be a trap. She paused by a crystal chandelier, her hands trembling slightly as she poured wine into a goblet. A sudden commotion drew her gaze to the center of the hall. That wall, Zorvath, the Moff's enforcer, moved with unnerving grace, his presence both reassuring and intimidating. With a sharp command from an unseen figure, the crowd parted like the sea, revealing Lady Alistair standing by the grand piano. Alistair's voice cut through the murmur of the room. Corelia, find me the Moff immediately. The rule was clear. No one questioned the Moff's commands. Corelia bowed deeply and hurried away, her heart pounding in sync with the thumping bass from hidden speakers. The hallway was a labyrinth of mirrors and shadows, each step echoing louder than she wished. She reached the Moff's private chambers, her breath catching as she saw him seated on his throne-like chair, surrounded by guards who barely acknowledged her presence. He turned to face her, his eyes cold as ice. Report, he commanded, voice a mere whisper in the opulent room. Corelia swallowed hard and relayed Lady Alistair's request. The Moff nodded, then abruptly stood, signaling for her to follow. As they walked down another corridor, she noticed the guards, weapons glinting ominously under the dim lights. The new consequence was clear. If Corelia failed to deliver the message without delay, the guards would be on high alert. Time was of the essence. Make sure it's done. The Moff's voice rasped from behind a mask of marble, his presence heavy with unspoken threats. Corelia turned, her mind racing, as she realized just how thin the line between serving and surviving truly was. Would the rule of silence hold under the weight of such newfound danger? Corelia sprinted down the echoing hallways, her feet barely making a sound. She pushed open Lady Alistair's ornate door, finding the other woman huddled by the window, eyes wide with fear. Quickly, Corelia hissed, "We need to leave." Alistair clutched at her arm, whispering, "What about the others? The Moff will deal with them." Corelia's voice was steady, but she could feel the tension in every muscle. "We must escape, now." "Nardo, Warren, round." They moved through the estate, slipping past unsuspecting guards, and avoiding the prying eyes of servants. The rule of silence meant they had to be silent. In a narrow passageway, Alistair tripped over a loose stone, causing her to gasp loudly. Corelia grabbed her by the arm, pulling them both into a tight corner. "Stay quiet," she commanded, her voice barely above a whisper. The Moff's forces are tightening their grip. Alistair nodded, but her breaths were heavy and visible in the chill air. They slunk forward, their path now fraught with peril. Suddenly, Corelia felt a sharp pain in her side, followed by darkness. The last thing she saw was Alistair's terrified face, framed by flickering torchlight. Corelia. "No, we're consumer, Renotion turn, always steps," Alistair whispered, reaching out to touch the cold floor where her friend had fallen. Corelia slipped through the shadows, her breath ragged. The opulent tapestries seemed to leer at her as she moved closer to Lady Alistair's quarters. The rule of silence was paramount. A whisper could mean death. A sudden thud echoed through the hall, and Corelia stumbled, her foot catching on an unseen knot in the carpet. Pain exploded in her ankle as she fell hard onto the cold stone floor. Alistair reacted instantly, shoving her gently but firmly forward with a look of grim determination. They had been too careless, too slow. The guards' presence drew closer, their boots thudding through the estate like an ominous drum roll. Corelia and Alistair pressed on, their only hope now to reach the Moff's chambers undetected, but every step felt heavier than the last, as if fate itself were weighing down on them. "Can you make it?" Alistair's voice was barely a whisper. "Oh." The guards' lightsabers caught the dim light, casting long shadows that seemed to mock their desperate race for survival. Corelia's ankle throbbed with every step, but she refused to slow. Her vision blurred as exhaustion and pain threatened to overwhelm her. "Always," Alistair replied, her voice a promise in the darkness. What if silence was not enough? Corelia darted around a corner, her breath ragged as she followed Alistair's lead. The echoing halls seemed to close in on them with each step. They were guided by the rule of silence, but it was growing harder to maintain. Corelia's ankle throbbed fiercely under her dress, slowing her down and making every sound seem amplified. A sudden shadow blocked their path. Guards stood at a crossroads, weapons drawn. Corelia's heart pounded as she realized they had been detected. "Quickly," Alistair hissed, pulling her towards the nearest alcove. They crouched against the wall, listening to the guards' muffled conversation. The new consequence was clear. Failure meant not just their lives, but also the potential unraveling of all they had fought for. Time was running out as the Moff's forces closed in. What lay beyond these walls remained as uncertain as ever. Corelia pressed herself against the cold stone wall, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Alistair's hand gripped hers tight, fingers bruising but offering silent reassurance. The rule of silence must be absolute. A single misstep could mean capture or worse. Guards patrolled the hallway outside, their boots clattering like thunder on the marble floor. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through Corelia's ankle, sending a jolt up her leg. Alistair gasped softly, but Corelia squeezed his hand to stifle any further sound. They huddled closer, listening intently as the guards' footsteps grew louder, then paused right outside their alcove. Alistair shifted slightly, and Corelia bit back a yelp of pain. The guards began to speak in low tones, their voices muffled but unmistakable. Arachivakshi, I know this impact that I seknara, Marin Vishinasad, and Lan Disbi, Bandio. Moff needs them now, one growled. What? They're too close. No. Corelia's heart raced as the realization hit. If they are discovered, it would be impossible to escape. Their mission was doomed. Anwar, mission was doomed. With a desperate glance at Alistair, Corelia whispered, "We have to move." But their path forward seemed blocked by an unyielding wall of guards and duty. Their only hope lay in finding another way, but the hallway stretched out before them like an endless maze. Corelia's ankle throbbed, a constant reminder of their compromised position. What secret lies within the Moffs' chambers? Will they find the strength to overcome their new obstacle, or will failure seal their fate? The night air hummed with the distant buzz of alarms. Corelia squeezed Alistair's hand, her heart pounding in sync with his. We must move now, or risk discovery. The Moff's presence looms closer than ever. Alistair nodded, his eyes scanning the shadows. We need to find another way past those guards. Corelia shifted carefully, wincing as pain shot through her injured ankle. Can you lead us somewhere undetected? Alistair pointed towards a narrow alcove, hidden by thick curtains. That passage leads to the kitchens. It's less frequented at this hour. They moved silently, following Alistair's path until they reached the alcove. Corelia leaned against the wall, her breath heavy. The kitchen was eerily quiet, save for the occasional clatter from a distant pantry. We need to be quick. The Moff's presence could draw us out. Alistair approached a door, marked with a symbol of the Empire. He paused, fingers hovering over the lock. This is our only chance. Only chance. Corelia gripped her utility knife tighter, ready for anything. Wow. Alistair's actions were risky, but necessary. With a swift motion, he picked the lock and pushed open the door. The kitchen was empty, save for a single guard, patrolling nearby. Corelia and Alistair slipped in, their hearts racing. What secrets will we uncover within these walls? Stone floors echo their soft footsteps as Corelia and Alistair creep through the dimly lit kitchens. The air is thick with the scent of decayed food, making Alistair's nose wrinkle in disgust. A lone guard stands watch by a door marked with an Imperial insignia. His back is turned, offering them a narrow window to act. Corelia grabs Alistair's arm and nods towards the symbol on the doorway. Those with Moff's permission may enter. Before they can move, the guard shifts his weight, blocking their path. With no other choice, Corelia pulls out her small lockpick, expertly picking the lock as Alistair keeps watch. The door creaks open silently, and they slip inside a room filled with ancient relics and forgotten scrolls. But the air is thick with an eerie silence, and Corelia's ankle twinges painfully with each step. Alistair whispers, "We should have thought of this earlier." Corelia glances around, her eyes landing on a dusty console at the center of the room. It hums softly, revealing a hidden compartment that contains crucial data. But as they approach, the floor beneath them groans a trap has been set. A low rumble shakes the room, and a series of stone walls begin to close in from all sides. The guard outside suddenly rushes in, his eyes wide with panic. "Corelia!" "Oh!" "Alistair!" he shouts, but it's too late. The walls are almost closed. Corelia pulls out her blaster, readying herself for the fight ahead. As Alistair draws his lightsaber, the blade slicing through air with a soft hum. What do we do now? Mine sheriff. Out and see her. Wait, stimker. The walls continue to close in, leaving them with no escape but deeper into the Moff's household, where the real danger lies hidden. Corelia's boot scrapes against the cold stone floor as she eases past the guard. Alistair pulls out a slim pick and deftly pries open the lock, his breath misting in the chill air. The door creaks slightly as it swings inward, revealing a dimly lit chamber filled with ancient tapestries and ornate furniture. The Moffs' chambers are a maze of hidden dangers. Each step must be calculated to avoid silent alarms. Corelia and Alistair approach a grand desk where a hologram flickers to life. Data streams across the screen, detailing a network of illegal trade operations. They know this could bring them closer to their goal, but also draw more attention from the Moffs' guards. Suddenly, the room fills with blinding light as the floor cracks beneath Alistair's feet and begins to collapse. Corelia grabs his arm, pulling him toward a narrow passage, just in time as the ground gives way behind them. The tunnel is dark and twisting, leading who knows where, but they have no choice but to trust each turn. Corelia's fingers grip the hilt of her blaster, ready to fire. Corelia and Alistair sprint down the dark tunnel, each shadowy wall closing in as if alive. The air grows thick with an eerie silence, broken only by their heavy breaths and pounding hearts. A rule bites hard. In Moff administrative estates, every door is a potential trigger. Corelia's voice is barely above a whisper as she smashes into the next door, only to find it already unlocked and patrolled by a hidden security drone. The drone whirs to life, its sensors locking onto their movements. They dart past, Alistair using his agility to avoid detection, while Corelia holds back the drone with her blaster. The drone's presence is confirmed. They are in the Moff's personal vaults, a place of power and forbidden knowledge. A consequence, the drone alerts a nearby patrol, and footsteps echo through the corridors. They must find a way out quickly, or face being cornered by more guards. What will Corelia do when faced with the Moff's private records? Corelia's pulse raced as she slipped through the shadows of the vault. Alistair's breath was heavy behind her, both of them aware of the silent drones circling overhead. The rule of the Moff's household is clear. Any breach triggers a silent alarm that no one can hear but all must obey. Alistair reached for the control panel and flicked it, triggering a decoy signal. The drones swerved away, their sensors confused. Corelia took this moment to scan the vault's database, her heart pounding as she found what they were looking for. Evidence of illegal spice trade. Suddenly, the floor beneath them started to shake. Alarms began to hum softly, barely audible, but unmistakable. They had only seconds before the bolts. Security doors sealed shut. With Alistair by her side, Corelia sprinted towards a hidden panel in the wall, their urgency driving them forward. She pressed the correct combination, and the door slid open just as the vault walls began to close around them. They tumbled into a dark, twisting tunnel. Right now, the silence was oppressive, making every creak and groan of the walls feel like an echo of doom. What secrets lie in wait for them? In these dark corridors, the vault doors slam shut behind them, darkness swallowing their light. Corelia scrambles to her feet, Alistair trailing closely, both hearts pounding as they navigate the sudden silence. The tunnels are rigged with silent tripwires, each door a trap waiting to be sprung. Corelia's fingers trace the walls, feeling for any change. Her hand brushes against a cold metal grate, and she pulls it aside just in time. A narrow passage opens, leading into another chamber. "This way," she whispers urgently, tugging Alistair forward. They emerge into a dimly lit control room, filled with blinking lights and monitors, displaying grainy video feeds. Corelia's eyes scan the screen, her breath catching as she sees an unexpected image, a small dart-like device being injected into a guard's arm. Illegal spice, she hisses under her breath, recognizing the substance. Alistair spots something else on another monitor, security officer, moving suspiciously close to their target. The room's silence is suddenly shattered by the muffled sound of footsteps approaching. Their path back is blocked. They are cornered in a cul-de-sac, with no escape route visible. Alistair pulls out his blaster and aims it at the approaching security officer. tension building as he prepares to act. "Stay behind me," Corelia whispers, her voice steady but trembling. The situation teeters on the edge of chaos. Their mission has just become a fight for survival. I push through the dust cloud, my boots echoing against the stone walls. The tunnels twist and turn, their silent darkness closing in like an unseen hand. Security doors slam, shut behind me, locking Alistair and I in a narrow passage. Panic flares, but he's already assessing the situation, his eyes narrowing as he studies a wall panel. A low hum resonates through the air as the control room's lights flicker on. Alistair's voice rumbles with urgency. "Corelia, there's a code to override these doors." But before he can finish, a guard rounds the corner, his blaster trained on us. My heart sinks as I realize we're trapped. Alistair steps forward, his presence filling the narrow space. "I have a way in," he says, his tone calm but tense. He pulls out a small device and quickly begins to tap at it. The guard barks orders in a harsh voice, demanding surrender. Alistair ignores him, his fingers dancing over the console. Suddenly, a soft chime. Sounds a warning light blinks on. Alistair's face contorts with effort as he struggles against the system. It's locked down. He mutters, sweat beading on his brow. The door to the control room begins to slide open, just enough for us to squeeze through. But it's not wide enough for both of us. Alistair looks at me, his eyes pleading. "Go," he says, pushing me forward. I hesitate a moment too long, and the doors close again with a sickening thud. I run down the corridor, my heart pounding as I race towards freedom. But the tunnel ahead is sealed off, the end blocked by a reinforced door. Alistair's voice echoes through the silence. "Corelia, don't stop now. Keep going." The unanswered question lingers. How much further can we push before the Empire closes all our escape routes? Corelia crouched low, her heart pounding as Alistair shifted silently beside her. The tunnel walls loomed like stone sentinels, their shadows deepening into menacing silhouettes. The rule was clear. No noise, no light, only the whisper of breath and the click of boots on metal. An alarm rang in the distance, its volume increasing steadily. Corelia's fingers trembled as she fumbled for the code panel, her mind racing through the limited options available. With a final desperate press, the door in front of them began to flicker. The security protocol was our Titany. Breach would trigger an immediate alert. Alistair stepped forward, his hand on Corelia's shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Hold tight," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of their hearts. The door finally yielded with a sickening grinding sound. But just as Alistair reached for the handle, a sudden burst of blaster fire tore through the air, sending sparks flying and shadows dancing in the darkened corridor. Corelia's breath hitched as she dove behind a nearby crate, her fingers already reaching for her blaster. "They know we're here," she hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. Alistair nodded grimly. "Well, I can sell turning our Derek. We need to move fast." He gestured towards the control room up ahead. "There's a way out. It just takes time." The unanswered question lingered. Could they find a way before the Empire's wrath descended upon them? Corelia sprinted down the tunnel, Alistair's blaster at her side. They dived into a narrow alcove. As blaster bolts whizzed past, the reinforced door loomed ahead, blocking their path. Corelia keyed in the code frantically. Protocol dictates all systems must be shut down for maintenance during these hours, but this was no ordinary shutdown. Security protocols mandate a 3-minute delay before any override can activate. Time ticked away, agonizingly slow, as Corelia and Alistair waited, the door's hum growing louder. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out completely, plunging them into darkness. The silence was oppressive, filled only with their ragged breathing. What lurks in the shadows, now that they can see nothing? Corelia twisted her wrist to activate a hidden switch, sparks flying, as she narrowly avoided blaster fire. Micro Scene 1. The tunnel walls glowed briefly with the blue light of Corelia's emergency lightsaber, casting eerie shadows. Alistair crouched beside her, his breath visible in the cool air. Protocol dictates that any code override must be confirmed by a secondary officer to prevent unauthorized access. Micro Scene. Corelia's fingers danced over the control panel, but the delay had begun. The hum of the closing door intensified, drawing Corelia and Alistair deeper into the tunnel's darkness. Alistair's eyes darted around the dark tunnel, spotting a flicker of movement in the shadows ahead. He whispered, "Corelia, look out." A pair of cold lights reflected off something metallic, just beyond her reach as she turned, leaving an unanswered question behind. Corelia's hand clenches around Alistair's arm as they sprint down the narrow tunnel. Micro Scene 1. Corelia and Alistair dodge blaster bolts, their breaths ragged. The walls are slick with condensation, and the air smells of damp earth and fear. Every code override must be confirmed by a secondary officer to prevent accidental sealing. Micro Scene 2. Just as they reach an intersection, Corelia stops short, her hand flying up to press against the wall. Alistair follows her gaze and sees a metallic glint in the shadows ahead. Before he can react, a low hiss sounds from the darkness. Panic surges through Corelia as she realizes the hiss is a lock mechanism starting to engage. She pulls out her blaster, ready for whatever emerges, but knows they have seconds before the tunnel seals them in. What now? Alistair's voice trembles, and Corelia can feel the weight of the Moffs' household pressing down on their backs once more. Corelia's flashlight beam dances across the wet tunnel wall, casting eerie shadows. Alistair reaches for his comlink, but it's out of battery. "No signal," he whispers, stepping closer to a hulking metal door that begins to seal shut. Any override requires confirmation from a secondary officer. Stationed at the other end of the tunnel, Corelia and Alistair find an old-fashioned intercom. They shout into it, but get no response. The door hisses shut, trapping them in a small alcove between walls lined with ancient machinery. "Are we? Understandability. Nice and well. The Trubdigger. Band out, are we?" Corelia's voice trails off as she realizes the gravity of their situation. Alistair, "What now? Mission now. Raju, Oganok Stalkret, Accessing Danny Kalkan, Matlino." They hear faint scratching and metallic scraping from outside their sealed-off alcove. A low, mechanical hum grows louder, indicating an automated system is being activated. Or, what could that be? Corelia's heart races as the unknown entity closes in. Corelia and Alistair huddle against the cold stone wall, their breath visible in the chill air. The lock mechanism ticks ominously as it counts down to closure. A rule bites hard now. All intercoms are offline during maintenance windows, but none of the staff are permitted to override this protocol for any reason. "Think fast," Alistair whispers, his voice strained. "Maybe there's another way out." Corelia's eyes scan the tunnel, spotting a vent that leads up and away from their current location. "Which is the mountain? Up for any stokeri? No go." She points it out, her fingers trembling as she starts to pry open the grill. The vent is small, but it might offer a chance. With Alistair's help, they manage to squeeze through the narrow opening, coughing and sputtering as they emerge into a dimly lit service corridor. The mechanical hum outside grows louder, accompanied by the distant sound of boots approaching at a rapid pace. Alistair pulls out his blaster, but Corelia grabs his arm. "What if it's a trap?" "What if it's a trap?" The door behind them swings open with a metallic creak, and a group of stormtroopers steps in, their lightsabers glowing ominously. "Which way did they go?" one of the troopers demands, stepping forward. Corelia's heart races as she peers around the corner, spotting an escape route leading to a lower-level service entrance. "That way," she points, her voice barely above a whisper. Alistair nods and leads the way, but Corelia hesitates at the threshold. The corridor stretches out into darkness, and beyond it lies who knows what danger. What will they find on the other side? Corelia squirmed through the narrow vent, her heart pounding, as Alistair followed closely behind. The cool air outside was a welcome relief from the oppressive dampness of the tunnel. A rule bites hard now. All service corridors are strictly monitored for unauthorized access. They emerged into a dimly lit service corridor, the sounds of distant alarms mingling with the mechanical whirring of the Moffs' estate systems. Alistair scanned the area, his eyes darting nervously from shadow to shadow. "We need to find another way out," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the din. A sudden rumble echoed through the corridor, and a pair of stormtroopers rounded the corner, their blasters at the ready. Corelia squeezed against the wall, her breath caught in her throat as Alistair motioned for them to stay hidden. The troopers stopped short, scanning the area with their thermal sights. "Clear one," muttered into its comlink. They continued down the corridor, leaving a narrow path between life and death for Corelia and Alistair. Once they were sure the coast was clear, Corelia and Alistair sprinted towards a lower-level exit, but beneath them seemed to shudder as if an unseen force was stirring in the depths of the Moff's household. They reached a door, labeled emergency exit, but it was locked tight. Corelia fumbled with a small key from her belt, her fingers trembling. She inserted it into the lock and turned it, the door reluctantly yielding. As they stepped outside, the oppressive heat hit them like a wall, drying their sweat-dampened clothes in an instant. The exit opened onto a service deck, overlooking the main hall. Below, stormtroopers patrolled with grim efficiency, their presence a stark reminder of the Empire's grip. Alistair grabbed Corelia's arm and pulled her towards a ladder leading down to a storage bay. "This way," he hissed. They scrambled down the ladder into darkness, each step echoing ominously in the enclosed space. The lower level was filled with crates and machinery, but something wasn't right. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen tension. What lurks below, waiting for them? Corelia and Alistair crawled through the narrow vent, their breaths echoing in the confined space. The stormtroopers outside grow bolder, their footsteps closer. "We need to get out of here," Alistair whispers urgently, an hysterican, wow. As they near a junction, Corelia pauses, her hand on the cool metal wall. "What if we can't escape?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Alistair glances around, his eyes narrowing at the flickering light from their small emergency lights. "Then we fight," he says resolutely. "Or find another way." The vent opens into a service corridor, and they emerge to find themselves in the heart of the Moff's estate. The oppressive heat is overwhelming, making every breath feel like a struggle. They hurried down the dimly lit hallway, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. Suddenly, Alistair stops, his hand pressed against the wall. "Listen," he whispers, his eyes wide with realization. Corelia tilts her head, straining to hear anything beyond the constant hum of machinery. Distant Corelia clung to Alistair's arm as they huddled behind the cold stone alcove, their breaths barely audible. The walls seemed to close in, shadows whispering threats. Emergency protocol dictated silence. Any sound could alert the guards. Alistair halted abruptly, gesturing for them to remain hidden. Corelia's heart pounded in unison with Alistair's, the hum of distant droids growing louder. His face was pale, eyes scanning the corridor like a hunter's. The patrol was 2 minutes away. The patrol was 2 minutes away. Silence or capture loomed. Alistair signaled for them to stay still as a group of guards, and their droids passed by, footsteps echoing ominously. Corelia clamped her mouth shut tighter, feeling Alistair's grip relax slightly once they had passed. They could hear footsteps approaching, likely the next patrol. Nurturing right now. Running down, next patrol. What if they couldn't make it in time? Moab. Stone. And don't in Brexit. Instant Steinbrett. Night vertical. US support me. Links. Corelia and Alistair crouched behind the cold stone alcove. As harsh blaster beams flashed past, the air was thick with tension, their breaths barely audible. Emergency protocol dictated silence. But Alistair's eyes darted nervously. "We need to move," he whispered, his voice strained. Alistair nodded, feeling the walls closing in. "Margin, and..." They pushed forward, hearts pounding. They hurried down the seemingly endless corridor, each moment stretching into what felt like an eternity. As they turned the corner, the floor shook, ever so slightly. Alistair grabbed Corelia's arm, pulling her into a side room. "Mission uncasing a doji can attract them," the man stopped. Quickly, he hissed, pointing to a small hatch in the floor. Corelia hesitated, fear gripping her chest. She knew what lay below. The silent key, hidden from prying eyes. But they needed it now more than ever. With a deep breath, Corelia crouched and slid into the dark crawl space. The air was stale and damp. She could feel the ground shifting beneath her hands as she searched for the key. Alistair followed closely behind, clutching his side where a guard's blaster nearly caught them. Corelia's fingers closed around a cold metal. Object familiar, yet foreboding. She pulled it free, just as the door above cracked open, revealing the approaching patrol. What if they were found? The silent panic echoed in Corelia's mind as she and Alistair scrambled back to their feet, clutching the silent key tightly. Corelia and Alistair clutched their fists, pressing closer to the wall as guards passed mere inches from where they crouched. Their emergency protocol forbade speech. Only the soft hum of droid engines filled the air. With a swift motion, Corelia grabbed the silent key and shoved it into her pocket, just as Alistair tugged her forward. Alistair urged Corelia to hurry as the sound of approaching footsteps grew closer. They stumbled out of the side room, racing down another corridor towards their temporary shelter. Each step echoed in the silence, making them feel exposed despite the protocol's restrictions on sound. Corelia's heart raced. If they were caught now, it could mean certain death. A sudden noisy, low murmur from an unseen corner froze them. No! The unknown virus would activate soon, and with it, a new set of consequences that could unravel their entire mission. What if the virus corrupted the estate's defenses, leading to their capture or worse? Corelia and Alistair continued in silence, every step towards the shelter fraught with uncertainty. Would they make it in time? Watch out. Or would the unknown virus turn everything against them? I'll call Kel. Alistair Corelia, Alistair Corelia Alistair, Alistair Alistair, Alistair Corelia clings to Alistair's arm as they huddle in the shadows. The stormtroopers' boots thud past their door, and Corelia shivers, feeling the cold metal of her utility belt against her side. Emergency protocols require all staff to remain silent during security breaches. The hallway is eerily quiet after the troop surge. Only their shallow breaths fill the cramped space. Alistair's grip tightens around Corelia's hand. What do we do now? Corelia thinks quickly, scanning the room for a way out or an opportunity. The door handle feels cold and unyielding under her touch. Wow, courageous, ain't it? We wait, she whispers, her voice barely more than a breath. They'll pass soon. Silence hangs heavy, as each moment drags by interminably. Corelia's mind races ahead to what comes next, but she knows they cannot move just yet. They need to bide their time. Finally, the footsteps fade into the distance, and the hallway resumes its usual quiet hum. Corelia and Alistair exchange a relieved glance before cautiously making their way back down the corridor. Their delay has bought them more time, but at what cost? The Moffs' household is vast, and they might not have much longer to act. Corelia clutches Alistair's hand tighter as the door rattles from the other side. The stormtroopers' footsteps grow fainter, but their silence is a rule in this household. Corelia and Alistair remain absolutely still, watching the flickering light cast eerie shadows on the walls. In Moff's estates, the emergency protocol dictates complete radio. Silence any noise could alert the wrong people. The door finally opens with a loud creak, and a stormtrooper steps inside, muttering to himself. Corelia and Alistair freeze, their breaths almost imperceptible as they wait for the patrol to pass them by. Corelia and Alistair exchange a glance, preparing to move on. Corelia crouched behind the heavy tapestry, her breath barely visible in the chill air. Alistair clung to her arm, his eyes wide with fear. Emergency protocol mandates silence under all circumstances. Alistair shivered, his teeth chattering despite the effort to stay still. Corelia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, whispering, "We just have to hold on." The stormtroopers' boots thudded past outside their hiding spot, and for a moment they were safe. But as quickly as the threat had passed, another emerged Corellian noticed the flicker of a light in the distant hallway. Alistair's head snapped up, his eyes wide with alarm. "What is that?" he whispered urgently. Corelia's gaze darted towards the sound, her heart pounding. "It's just an inspection," she lied, though the thought of being discovered made her palms sweat. "Stay calm." The hallway grew brighter as a beam from a flashlight illuminated it, and Corelia tensed, ready to spring into action if needed. But then, something unexpected happened. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving slowly and carefully. It was one of the Moffs' personal guards, his presence adding an extra layer of tension. Corelia and Alistair held their breath, praying they hadn't been seen. As the guard passed by, Corelia caught a glimpse of something in his hand, something small and metallic, perhaps a message or a coded device. She quickly remembered the Moff's strict protocol. Any unauthorized contact with outsiders could result in severe penalties for both staff and their families. What if this was more than just an inspection? The guard disappeared around a corner, leaving Corelia and Alistair in the dark again. They cautiously moved to check on the situation, but every step they took felt like walking into a web of danger. Will their silence save them or seal their fate? Corelia's breath misting in the chill air as she clings to Alistair. The Moff's guard, dressed in black armor, passes through the doorway with a device that hums softly. Corelia and Alistair remain hidden behind the tapestry, hearts pounding. Emergency protocol mandates complete silence. Speaking is punishable by immediate reassignment or worse. As the guard disappears into another room, the emergency light flickers again, casting eerie shadows across their faces. The device he carried is now visible, a small, sleek droid that whirs softly as it begins to map the room. Corelia and Alistair exchange a worried glance. They realize their presence has been noted by the household surveillance systems. Any movement could trigger an alarm. The new droid adds another layer of complexity to their mission. Will their silence be enough, or will this breach lead them into deeper trouble? Corelia and Alistair crouch behind the tapestry, their breaths barely audible. The guard's footsteps echo down the corridor, humming softly as he passes by. Emergency protocol demands silence. Speaking could lead to disaster. The guard's droid hums closer, its lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. Corelia feels Alistair tense beside her, his grip tightening on her arm. They hold their breath as the droid moves past without incident. After a tense minute, the coast clears. Corelia and Alistair dart out from behind the tapestry, racing down the hall in silence. Their emergency rations are nearly depleted, and they must find shelter before they're caught. They brace for the next patrol to pass. Cold open line, 1525 words. Corelia slides against the wall, her heart pounding as Alistair's breath hovers close. Microscene, 1, 10-15 sentences. I crawl along the floor, my eyes scanning for any sign of movement. Corelia moves silently behind me, holding a small bundle of rations tightly. The corridor is still. This must be our chance. I reach out and tap Alistair's arm gently. We need to move, I whisper, but he shakes his head urgently. Micro rule, 1 sentence. Emergency protocol mandates complete silence during high-risk operations. Consequence microscene, 2, 10-15 sentences. Alistair pulls the hood of her cloak tighter around her face and motions for me to follow. We creep towards a junction in the corridor, but our luck runs thin as a guard's boot taps rhythmically nearby. "Quick!" I hiss, tugging Alistair down a side passage. The door is heavy with fear and sweat as we push it open just wide enough. Micro Scene 3, 10-15 sentences. Shelter is close, but the danger isn't over yet. We hear footsteps echoing through the empty halls, growing louder. Corelia clutches her stomach. Her rations are almost gone. And Newberry. Another patrol might bring capture, or worse, exposure to Moff's forces. What if they find us here? Well, Mitch. Corelia's breath misted in the cold air as she clutched Alistair's arm. The walls seemed to close in, their shadows whispering threats. Emergency protocol forbids us from speaking. It's a silent race against time. Alistair halted abruptly, her hand gesturing for them to huddle behind an alcove. Their hearts pounded in unison, the hum of distant droids growing louder. Alistair's face was pale, eyes scanning the corridor like a hunter's. The patrol is 2 minutes away. Silence or they're caught. Alistair signaled for them to stay still as a group of guards and their droids passed by, their footsteps echoing ominously. Corelia clamped her mouth, shut tighter, feeling Alistair's grip relax. Time was running out. The next patrol would arrive shortly. What if we can't make it in time? What? Corelia and Alistair crouch behind the cold stone alcove. As the harsh blaster beams flash past, the air is thick with tension, their breaths barely audible. Emergency protocol dictates silence, but Alistaria's eyes dart nervously. "We need to move," she whispers, her voice strained. Alistair nods, feeling the walls closing in. They push forward, hearts pounding. Their path seems endless, each moment stretching into infinity. As they round a corner, the ground trembles slightly, signaling the approaching patrol. Alistair grabs Corelia's arm, pulling her into a side room. Quickly, she hisses, pointing to a small hatch in the floor. Corelia hesitates, fear gripping her chest. She knows what lies below, the silent key, hidden from prying eyes. But they need it now, more than ever. With a deep breath, Corelia crouches and slides into the dark crawl space. The air is stale and damp. She can feel the ground shifting beneath her hands as she searches for the key. Alistair follows, clutching her side, where a guard's blaster nearly caught them. Corelia's fingers close around a cold metal object familiar, yet foreboding. She pulls it free, just as the door above cracks open, revealing the approaching patrol. What if they're found? The silent panic echoes in Corelia's mind as she and Alistair scramble back to their feet, clutching the silent key tightly. Corelia and Alistair clench their fists, pressing closer to the wall as the guards pass mere inches from where they crouch. Their emergency protocol forbids speech. Only the soft hum of droid engines fills the air. With a swift motion, Corelia grabs the silent key and shoves it into her pocket just as Alistair tugs her forward. Alistair pulls Corelia along as they hurry away from the side room, knowing the next patrol could arrive at any moment. They stumble out of the side room, racing down another corridor towards their temporary shelter. Each step echoes in the silence, making them feel exposed despite the protocol's restrictions on sound. Corelia's heart races. If they are caught now, it could mean certain death. A sudden noisy, low murmur from an unseen corner freezes them. The unknown virus will activate soon, and with it, a new set of consequences that could unravel their entire mission. What if the virus corrupts the estate's defenses, leading to their capture or worse? Corelia and Alistair continue in silence, every step towards the shelter fraught with uncertainty. Will they make it in time? Or will The unknown virus turned everything against them.